Welcome, welcome, welcome to Table Talk tonight. I'm so excited to have you guys join us tonight. And I have some amazing guests. You know, on Table Talk, we really talk about business strategy. We talk about family, faith, and we bring guests on that will have information to share with you that I know will change your life. And it's no different tonight. Tonight our focus is on parenting, but it's on fathers parenting and what they feel their role is as a father in parenting their children. And also these amazing men are doing some incredible work in the community, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to also share that information with you as well. So just welcome to Table Talk tonight, and I'm going to start off by having them introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Scott Chevalier, who I have known for a long time. So, Scott, will you just introduce yourself to the viewing audience?
Absolutely. Thanks, Yolanda. It's so good to be with you tonight. I am the executive director of the Powerhouse Youth Project. I get the opportunity and privilege not only to speak in the lives of my kids, but speak in the lives of kids across the nation in middle school and high school campuses, and try to connect them with the opportunity to make good choices and create healthy habits for their lives. And then even as a dad in the community, finding ways to connect through our events so that we can, connect to those kids who may not have an active father influence and speak into their lives as well to give them structure.
Thanks, Scott. I'm so glad that you could join me tonight, and I'm so excited about the work that you've done for years, and the next level of work that I know that's coming forth, and I'm excited about that. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Papa Joe, Papa Joe, Papa Joe. Will you take the opportunity to introduce yourself to, a lot of people may know you already, but if you would take time to just introduce yourself to the viewing audience.
Well, I'm Papa Joe Bradford. I'm the life story behind the movie Unconditional. And Unconditional is now in 121 countries. And so on Google Translate, I'm speaking German earlier this morning and Spanish this evening. And so I'm also the founder and CEO of Elijah's Heart, and that's a nonprofit that's charitable and educational. And so we get the grace from God to work with, over the years, it's been thousands of kids. And so I'm really glad to be here. Yolanda is one of my sisters in the spirit, and we share the same birthday.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I've known Joe. I won't even say how many years, Joe, because they might try to figure out our age. We won't let them know that.
That's right.
but I'm just so excited about the work that you're doing and the movie. What's so funny is that when I went to the movies, when they showed the movie here, the preview here in Nashville, I'm sitting in the movie. At the time when I came, I didn't even realize it was about you. I'm sitting there, and they're telling the story, and I look at my staff, and I say, I know him. They were like, Miss Yolanda, you don't know him. You cannot know him. This is a movie. I'm like, no, there can't be more than 2 Joe Bradfords. I know him. And after the movie, and you stood up, and I was like, oh, my goodness. That was just a great surprise for me to know that that movie was about you and the impact that you're making, not just in Nashville, but across the country. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Marcus, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. My name is Marcus Meneese. I'm the president and founder of Stronger My Father Incorporated, a youth mentoring program that provides a father's youth the opportunity to live out his God-given purpose. Over the past few years, I've been working with a lot of inner city youth, helping them in different areas of their life, find out what their life goals and purpose are, and make the right connection for them to have their dream. For the past 13 years, I've mentored several fathers' youth, helping them get out of high school, enter into college, either on a full or partial scholarship. So the young men is working in our program. Right, I have 3 right now in college. So we provide our Hope Mentoring Program, which starts up in September. We provide ACT Prep at Trevecca Nazarene University, my alma mater. And also we do a youth empowerment camp every summer. This was our 2nd year doing it on Father's Day weekend this year, and was a very special time for 23 young men who really enjoyed themselves at this camp. So that's what Stronger in My Father is. Our goal is to break fatherhood cycles and give these young men every opportunity to live out the purpose that God has designed for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcus. I met Marcus a little bit over, it's been almost 2 years now, and heard about the mentoring program that he does, and was just so impressed with this young man and the work and the commitment that he has made to these young men to mentor them. You know, mentoring is not easy, and a lot of times people start off doing really well with it, and then they kind of leave it because it's hard work. And I just appreciate that he has stuck with it. He is growing the organization and doing some great work in the city. So I hope you, as we go through this session tonight, I hope you will continue to hear something that would inspire you to get involved with all of these organizations and help them, because they all, you know, all organizations need great volunteers that will come alongside of them and help them kind of continue the mission and the vision that they have. And so thank you guys for introducing yourself. And so I received a lot of questions from our viewing audience and those on Facebook and Twitter. And then I came up with some questions myself. About a month ago, we did a series on parents, but we focused on mothers. And so tonight, the questions will be directed to you guys as fathers and what you see your role is. And so my first question, and this is for all of you to answer, it says, share 3 things that you would share with other dads about parenting. What is 3 things that you would share with other fathers about parenting? And so, Joe, you know, I'm going to start with you because I want to share before you answer that he has a worship team. No, he has a choir at his house, not a worship team. So I'm going to start with Joe and have him answer that question.
Well, we have, my wife and I have 8 children. And I have a kidney transplant. After the second child, with the transplant, I was on so many medications, they said we wouldn't have any more children. And so, well, my wife didn't get that memo, guys. So there are 3, if you ask me 3 things, the first thing is this right here, and it's kind of like an umbrella. It's basically to help my children fall in love with God. That's my role above everything as a father, to help them fall in love with God. And I believe if that happens, everything else is going to take care of itself. But if I had to name 2 more, the second thing would be, it's actually a proverb, Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when they're old, they will not depart. But if you look at the Amplified version of that, it's like in keeping with their individual gift and bent.
Yeah.
And so they need to know who they are in God, and so that they won't follow a path of defeated purpose. And so that's the second thing. And the third thing I would suggest as a father is have fun.
Yes.
Yeah, have fun. I mean, kids are kids. You know, Jesus said, unless you become like a little child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. Come on, kids have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, so as a father, and as a father figure, because it's Papa Joe, people think I'm a dad. Everybody thinks I'm a dad. And so, you know, I love to have fun, and the kids love it. They never forget it. And they, you know, the second thing mentioned in the gifts of the Spirit is joy. Yeah. And so if we can impart that joy as a father, they can see, well, God, the Father, is actually fun. He actually loves me. And fun is just a sign. Not crazy fun. I'm talking about, you know, things that are, you know, in keeping with righteousness, of course. But, you know, he's just not just all pent up and, you know, stiff-necked. And, have fun with the kids. So those are the 3 things with me, Yolanda.
Thanks, Joe. Marcus, I'll have you answer next. What are 3 things that you would tell other fathers? Go ahead.
Well, first thing I would tell them is that you can make the biggest impact on their lives. You can be the father that gives them a roadmap of success. As a father of a 6-year-old, my main goal is, number one, my life has to represent what I do. I can't teach something that I'm not living. So I try to live kind of like my father taught me. My father didn't talk a lot, but his actions speak louder than words. He taught me to love my kids. He taught me to love my wife. He taught me to be a living example for my kids. So if I had to tell any father, number one, like Papa Joe said, you have to have a relationship with God because that's your spiritual roadmap for success. Number 2, teach them that work ethic. And then number 3, teach them how to be a father and a good husband. That's the number 1 thing I teach my boys is one day you're going to be a husband. So right now, your wife should be able to come home into a safe environment and a loving environment. So if you as a father can bring that to the table, then your wife will follow you always. So that's what I would tell a father is number 1, spiritual life. Number 2, give your kid the best roadmaps for success. Then number three, give you every tool to be a good husband.
Thanks, Marcus. Those were great. I think a lot of times we forget about being a great role model for our children sometimes because we see ourselves as role models for other people. And what I've seen is that people get so comfortable with their family members that they forget sometimes that and treat outsiders better than they do their family. So it's so important that we start with our children young, teaching them how to love on their own family members and love on their own sisters and brothers, because the way they treat their sisters and your brothers is how they're going to treat others when they're outside of the home. So Scott, I'm going to come to you and ask you that same question. 3 things that you would share with other dads about being a parent.
Well, I started reflecting on the book that Valerie had when we were expecting our first child, and then going through birthing classes and sitting in all those classes and getting educated on what to do when the child comes. And then I reflected on the fact that when I finally got to the house with the baby, nobody told me what to do.
Exactly.
The class was great. I knew how to change a diaper. I knew how to get a bottle to him. But no one told me how to live a life. And I think the important thing for me as a father was, first of all, if I don't have an understanding of a father, to find one. To get somebody in my life who can reflect and model for myself what a father is. And for me, that was going outside of my own comfort zone, even as a youth pastor in a church at that point, trying to find someone in our church who I thought modeled what a father was. And I think, when I think of 3 things, that's hard to limit to 3 things, but one of the things that I think in the seasons of life right now, patience is huge as a father. We have a tendency to think dads always are going to blow up and they just can't handle all the stress and concerns and frustrations and the fire in the kitchen and the yelling down the hall and the lawnmower is broken down and all that piles up. And I think patience is something, and that comes from God. There's no human patience, I think, that can sustain a person through the process of life. I think there has to be the Holy Spirit in us that gives us that calmness that says, you know what, I don't have to be anxious. I need to learn to rest. And that was a growing process for me because I would panic when a baby would cry. Even as a youth pastor, when I had to dedicate my first child in the church that asked me to dedicate them, their family, I was scared to death to hold that baby. And so it was really a learning process for me to learn patience in all seasons, whether they're a young child, a toddler, a teenager, and now even a young adult, to understand what that means. I think the second one, and this was a really tough one for me because I watched models in my own life that I never saw be apologetic. And I think it's very important to be transparent to your kids. And when you mess up as a dad, tell them. Let them know. Let them see the transparency and the growth in yourself, because we expect that out of them. There's no reason why we can't model that for them, to see that we don't have it all figured out and that life is process and we have to grow through that process. And that also takes the weight off our shoulders to understand I can be transparent in front of my kids and they're still going to love Dad. As a matter of fact, I'm going to find that they love me more because I don't feel like I got it all figured out. And I think the third and final for me is consistency. And I heard Marcus say it was awesome, even in your work ethic. I mean, letting them see that every day you get up, first of all, your priority is set for God in your life, that is a priority that you set for your family very young, very early, and that family is #1 paramount for you, and that regardless what comes across your desk, those are the decisions based on that priority and nothing else. And then third, just through life, let them see how you interact with other people. That I know, being in a pastor's home for me, from our kids seeing me, there's a lot of pressure on them. And so it was very important for them to see Dad be consistent. So the same Dad they could see speak at a youth camp or speak at a church was the same Dad they had at home. And I think that consistency really takes them a long way, knowing that they can go to him anytime, that he's not just somebody putting on a front. He is real. He makes mistakes, but he's able to be transparent about it, and he's consistent with them on a daily basis.
That was so good, guys. One of the things that stood out to me when you all of you were talking was the part about patience. So I think a lot of times we respond before we have thought and have it processed through, and sometimes we respond in the wrong way, and we have to go back and apologize because we responded so quickly because we didn't have patience to kind of let it settle and before we made a response. And also being transparent. our kids already know we're not perfect. And then when we try to portray that we are out in public, whether you're in a pastoral setting or just out in the community, they know what home looks like. So being consistent in both of those places and allowing them to see that you're not perfect and that we all make mistakes, but when we make those mistakes, we learn from them. And I hear so much about pastors' kids that they feel so, like they have to live a perfect life, that what I've seen is that a lot of them leave the church after they get older. And so if we can make that in our homes be more consistent with what they're seeing in the church, then they don't feel such pressure to be perfect. I want to get your response on that, Scott, since you were a pastor of a church. Are you seeing that as well, that kids that have parents that are pastors feel more of pressure when they're outside of the church?
Oh, there's no doubt. And I think for me, it makes me have a priority in my life that when I meet, for instance, at our own church, when I meet our pastors' kids, whether it be an outreach pastor, a youth pastor, a senior pastor, whoever they are, the first thing I do when they're in my home is make them feel as normal as they can be, and let them know that there is no pressure here, and I don't have that expectation, and they don't have to feel that way around me. That they can just be who they are, and that's good enough. And that there's a beauty in that, because I think there's a missing element in a lot of kids in that self-esteem moment where they struggle with their own identity. And I think even in the church setting, it becomes stronger from that platform, because they're trying to see their identity through their father and his preaching, or their mother and her teaching, whatever it might be, and they're trying to find, who am I in this? And they struggle with who they are, and a lot of times begin to doubt, maybe I don't have that relationship. Maybe God doesn't use me. And then the people in the church put those expectations that aren't realistic. So I think it's very important when you're around those folks to continually let them know, hey, look, you can just be normal here. You can let your hair down. If you're going to burp at eating pizza, burp. It can be a holy burp, but just burp. Don't feel like you have to be so perfect that you have to come in here. So yeah, I think it's important, and I think you have to really purpose it, because I think if we walk through life and don't realize it's happening, then we could be part of the problem, and we don't realize that pressure's on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my next question is, do you have any regrets? Most of you have older kids, at least, I think, Marcus, you said 4 or 5, I think?
He's 6.
Six. Just think back when your children were born until now. Do you have any regrets or wish you had have done something differently? I'm going to start with Papa Joe.
Well, I'm the anomaly in the group. My kids range from 21 years old to 21 months old. And so,
Lord, I'm going to lay hands on Papa Joe right now.
So I regret my 2 oldest, 21 and 18 years old, and they're very good cooks. I regret I didn't teach them at age 10, because I could have been good all the time.
That was good, Joe. That was good.
For real, I wouldn't call it regret, but I wish I wasn't so full of pride when my smaller ones were younger.
Yeah.
I honestly wish I had more humility then and didn't think I knew how to answer everything.
Yeah.
I really wish that. And just say God's been working on that one.
Exactly. That's good, Joe.
Yeah. And so that's the one thing that I wish was different at that time that I've actually learned from over the years.
That's good. Scott?
Well, that's a difficult question. Regret. I don't know if it would be my pride that would say no to that question. But I sit here and I honestly think about, and I go through that process, I think, on a daily basis, weekly, and through their birthdays. And I think I'm grateful in the relationship that we've created in our home that I haven't, and I think a lot of that has to come from the fact that I had regret as a child growing up. And so in my early days as a dad, it was so purposed in me to not allow that to happen. That I wanted so badly for them to experience life and see their parents as real. And I think, matter of fact, I asked my son, because of this show, I asked him, and my daughter, I asked them the question the other night. I said, do you think I'm overprotective? Do you think I've screwed up as a father? What would you say? Because I wanted to hear it. And they both kind of looked confused when they looked at me, and I thought, okay, if you don't have anything to say that I'm Father of the Year, that's awesome, you know. And they just kind of smiled and said, Dad, we don't really think of anything like that. And to me, that's a win. And so I think if personally I think of regrets, I think the only regrets I can think of in my life, and this comes from my heritage, I wish my kids could have experienced some of the things that I've experienced in traditional church, because church has changed so much in our culture. And, you know, I go to a church now where you very rarely hear a hymn that's being sung. And if I said Fanny Crosby to my kids, they would want to, what video game does she produce? They would have no idea, you know. And I heard Marcus say he went to Trevecca, and so did I. I graduated from Trevecca. And there's some moments in my life that I think back to the heritage that maybe in this culture may not be as relevant, but the truth of those hymns and the moments that I had in some of those services were so unique that I think they miss out on that. And I think that's a regret that I have, that I don't have a place to plug them in to see that.
Yes. That's great. I almost broke out into a hymn. I was feeling a hymn. But I said, this is not the platform for a hymn. We need to move on. So, Marcus, that same question for you?
I don't even have a lot of regrets. I think the main thing is my son is 6, and this is the best time for him to sponge up everything with his dad, but now he has to share his dad with all the other young men that I mentor. So now he goes on a lot of my mentor outings. So currently, right now, I'm doing one-on-one until we get enough men trained and ready to go to do our mentoring together. So, like tomorrow morning when I'm throwing football with another young man, my son will be there with me because he wants to be with dad. So as a father, I do not push him away and say, hey, go hang with somebody else. I'm with someone else. I said, no, you come with dad. So now every young man that I mentor, he thinks that's his brother. So now he says, where is so-and-so at? Where is so-and-so? Because now he assumes that's his brother. So if I had any regrets, I wish I maybe had kids earlier, but I did not know God was going to have his calling upon my life really until 2012. So now I just let my son go with me. On most of my outings, he goes with me, and right now he enjoys it. So I don't want my son ever having regret saying, Dad, you cared about more other young men, but you never cared about your son. So I never want him ever to say that. So anytime I do mentor outings now, 9 out of 10, he's going to be with his dad. So I'm enjoying that time with my son. So when I get home, even though I'm tired, I play with him. We can play Despicable Me on the phone. But I want him to always realize that his dad was there, and I would never abandon him unless God took my life. So I have no regrets. I'm enjoying being a father. Can't wait till my second son come in. And that's the only part I'm worried about, because I'm having 2 kids in a home now. I've been used to one. So I'm enjoying this process. I enjoy the role of being a good father. And like I said, I want my son to always say that Daddy had time for me.
That is so good, Marcus. Oh, my goodness. Because a lot of times, whether it's a dad in corporate America going up the corporate ladder, whether it's a pastor, they're in a pastoral position, they're an athlete or whatever, a lot of times children feel like they don't have their father. They're having to share their father. But I think there's a way to do it where there's a balance with it. And I love the way that you're including your child in the work that you're doing with other boys, because that tells a whole lot to that child. I remember I used to do a lot of work in the community. I would go where I was giving away stuff and all of that, and you never know what it's going to do to your children when they watch you out in the community. It spills off on them. Your children really become mini yous, and you don't know that, so we have to be careful what we allow them to see. Because I remember I was giving out clothes and shoes, and probably a month later, my son's teacher called and said, I was so impressed with him because he had a backpack full of clothes and shoes, and he was giving it to one of the kids in the classroom. And then another time he was selling his products at the school, and so he had watched me. He was an entrepreneur at age 7. He was selling products. And so we can either show them negative things that they see us doing, or we can show them positive things. So we want them to take those good things from us and being able to walk those things out. So I'm so glad that you are already at age 6 allowing him to be with you during that time where you're spending with other boys that need you as much as he needs you. Thank you so much. On the next question is, what were the hardest years for you? And I'm going to turn those questions to Scott and Joe since they have older children. And so, Scott, I'm going to come to you. What were the hardest years for you? Or if there weren't any, that's great.
No. Well, I think that depends on which child. I have a boy and a girl, and I think the hardest years for the girl for me were about age 11 and 12. Mm-hmm. I saw my daughter transition from where she was very loving toward dad to becoming a teenager and really trying to fit in all of that and wondering how that all fits. And I struggled with that because I wanted to be her prince all the time. Mm-hmm. And felt like that maybe she has transitioning through that. And luckily I have a wife who gives me some understanding that I just have to hang in there. It's going to be okay. And Valerie helped me walk through that to understand that through those changes it would be okay. And it has. Now she's 16, and every night she's over here by my side and getting a hug and a kiss, and just amazing. And I'm very blessed in that, that I don't have to even worry about Peyton or Zach. And with Zach, I think the hardest times for Zach growing up were learning his differences from me. I think that's difficult for all dads because, having only one son, my goal in life was for him to be on a football field. Mm-hmm. And early in life, I forced that. I would ask him, "Come on, son, you got to play football." And I would take him to practice, and he would go along with it, but he would never excel. He would never put his energy into it. And one day I just finally asked him, I said, "Why don't you like football?" And he said, "I like football. I just don't like wearing that sweaty helmet." And I said, "Well, that's a necessity." And I realized very soon that he was more mechanically minded than he was interested in those things, and I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I would see him take apart his toys or electronics and put it back together. And as a matter of fact, he's 19, he'll be 20 in August, and today as we were cleaning the outreach pastor's van, he had the hood up working on the pastor's van, and I had no clue what he was doing. But he totally understands mechanically what's going on. And so that was hard for me to understand what his passions were, and they were different than mine. His interests were different than mine, and how I could promote those and through his growing in the seasons of life. So I think that was emotionally for my daughter was difficult, and I think for Zach it was difficult understanding the differences that he and I had as guys.
Mm-hmm. Great. Papa Joe?
Well, mine by far would be the upper teen years, mainly because God created this thing called hormones.
Yes, he did.
I don't know why he did that, but I guess it's necessary. Everything he does is necessary. So I can almost combine the second question you had. Do you have any regrets? I regret we wasn't raptured before my daughter turned 18. She's a young lady, and because she gets it from her mom, of course. Uh-huh. So just a dad dealing with that thing with, someday your daughter and your son, they're gonna meet someone. And we pray and hope that it's the person that God has designed for them. But just going through that stage of how does a child be abstinent and still be in the we around a lot of people. We're around a lot of teens, we're around a lot of young adults. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of worldliness, unfortunately, even in the church, unfortunately. Not criticizing, but it just happens, Yes. And how do they not get caught up with their peers and things they shouldn't be doing? So dealing with that dynamic, and it's not a big challenge. It's just something that you asked what's the hardest for me, okay? Because right now with my little ones, I have, our last three were girls. And so we've got, the 20-month-old is a girl, we have a 3-year-old girl, and a 5-year-old girl.
Wow.
And I've been young a long time. They're going to start calling me Abraham soon. So I'm used to my little girls just coming, jumping in my lap and just kissing me and playing, not looking at the other, opposite sex. And so dealing with that dynamic, God is gracious, though. He's gracious. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, yes. One of the things that I've seen parents have struggled with is exactly what you guys just shared. And Scott, you said something that was very important, and I'm going to move to that question about how do we release our children into their destiny? Not the destiny that we want for them, but the destiny that they're born and bend, and they're bending in their giftings and their talent. Joe, you mentioned that scripture earlier, and so I think a lot of times what I see parents doing is that something that they weren't able to do, like that football Scott Chevalier, they still want to do. They push their children to do that, whether it's sports, whether it's in the entertainment industry, whatever it is. We tend to want to push our kids in that way instead of looking at what are their giftings and talents. So talk to me about how are you preparing your children to release them into the destiny that God has for them, or release them into those giftings that they have on them. How are you kind of directing that? I'm going to go to Marcus and ask him how is he beginning to do that in his young son. Marcus?
I'm glad you asked me that. Number one, me and my wife noticed maybe a year ago, my son used to grab microphones and he would be preaching in the living room. And preaching hard. And I didn't know. I mean, and then I would notice him at church really studying my pastor. And so has God called my son to preach? I don't know. But when he gets older, I want to ask him, what is your passion? What are you passionate about? I didn't realize that I was really passionate about teaching until my mom just gave me a book one day and said, teach. And then once I developed that talent, I knew that I had a gift to teach. But one thing my parents didn't do, they didn't push me. They let me live and let me find it on my own. They didn't try to interject it where you need to be this or you need to be that. So as my son grows, the preacher might leave him. That might leave him, but I just want to watch him as he grows, and then as he gets older, ask him, what are you passionate about? And then whatever he's passionate about, he might be passionate about 3 or 4 things, but just continue to help him grow and lead him in each one of his passions. And then eventually you're going to hit jackpot, and you're going to understand where his passion is and where he needs to go, and then it'll be easier for him. My younger brother was like that. It took him 2 or 3 times before he decided that IT was his field. He studied engineer at TSU. Once he realized that was too tough, he kept picking around, and eventually that IT came to him, and that happened to me. I went to college and went through probably 3 or 4 fields until I decided psychology was the field I wanted to go into. So it takes time, but eventually stick with your kids and then continue to just ask them what they're passionate about, what they would do for free if nobody paid them a dime. And that's what the famous question I learned from Les Brown. Yes. So I think Les Brown, he really helped me get me to the purpose. And I think that one question really moved me. So that's what I'm going to continue watching my son, guide and lead him and pray. And if God called him to preach, I'm really going to pray because I know it's a lot of work being a preacher. But he preaches hard. I'm telling you, if I post some preachers on Facebook, y'all will laugh, but he go ahead. He's serious about it. So that's what I would really encourage parents. Watch your children, put them in different activities, but whatever the purpose is, you're going to find out.
Great. Scott?
Well, I think Valerie and I have a visual that we have had all along in our married life with kids. We waited 7 years to have children, and we believe that our purpose as parents is nothing more than to build a launch pad. Mm-hmm. And that launch pad, first of all, has to be secure. And I equate it to NASA because that's really what it is. They're going to take off where they go, and it's my goal to build a foundation for them, give them a place of security, a place where they are safe to share what's on their heart and not feel stupid or embarrassed. For instance, this is very unique. My daughter, if you ask her tonight what will she do the rest of her life, she will tell you she is a professional princess. Now, when my father, who grew up in the Air Force and kind of a rough around the edges kind of guy, was trying to communicate with my daughter, and she said that. His first statement after that was, "Who wants some more eggs?" He didn't know how to deal with that. And the beauty of it is, I didn't get a manual when I graduated at Trevecca that said how to develop a princess.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal in life then, once I hear them share their heart and see it being really lived out daily, is to find ways to promote that. Mm-hmm. And encourage that, not to shoot them down and say, well, you'll never make a living, you'll never make money doing that, you'll never find people who want to be around you if you do that. People will think it's not those comments they need to hear. If you're building a launch pad for kids, and my kids, any kids, what they need to hear is, that is wonderful, how do we help you build that? And then what we have done is try to find that process, and I've learned what a princess is and how to build that, and thankfully through what God has done in her life, she is amazing at what she does. Now, my son, he went in the chicken business on our farm and sold eggs, and it amazes people every time we tell them he bought his first truck selling chicken eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him and thought, is he going to be a farmer? And it wasn't that at all. What was inside of him was an entrepreneur.
Right.
And he understood how to recognize opportunity. And I could have really pigeonholed him as a dad and said, that's great, you should be a farmer, let me get you to an agricultural school. And he would have been miserable. But instead, we continued to say, that's great, Zach, why don't you try to work for that for a while? And he studied and learned about it and knew how chickens produced eggs, could tell you what a healthy chicken was, knew the process of picking out good, healthy hens. But then he started developing that and moved it to a car detail business. And he started detailing cars. And then dealerships would ask him to come do it. And I started looking at him going, he's not a car detail guy. And he would do it for a season, and then he would figure it out and say, I think I want to hire people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're so quick as parents to want to pigeonhole our kids. When they're trying to live out what passions that God has placed within them. I think of Psalm 139 that says, for you created my inmost being.
Mm-hmm.
You knit me together in my mother's womb. And there's the part I like. All your works are wonderful. If we really believe that, then we have to trust the God who placed them in our mother's womb, that when they come out, they already have built within them that system to find what God has placed in them. And it's our job to build a platform of safety so they can experience it. And I think that's what my job is as a parent. And really, Yolanda, even with Powerhouse, that's our job with Powerhouse, is now to build a platform for every student in this country to say, you know what, no matter how ridiculous other people may think your passion is, there's a platform and a way to achieve it. And we're going to help you do that.
Amen. Joe?
Well, I think this is one of the most important questions.
Yes.
First of all, we have a band to back up Marcus's preaching son, just so you know that.
Exactly.
We have musicians in my household, and so when he gets to preaching, you give us a call. But
I will.
My wife and I have been working in the Christian industry with choirs and so forth for 20-some years. And our son, I believe that God would give us prophecy and let us know what he wants his children to do. I truly believe that we're stewards of our children. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we don't own them. Mm-hmm. I believe that as a parent, we're to represent the father, and but there he is. And so, Lord, prayerfully, what do you want your child to be? What have you created them to be? And so that's what we look into. We pray over that, and then we watch. It's kind of like what Scott was talking about. I really think the gift is going to show up because God's going to make it show up.
Yeah.
And so with our son, with our oldest son, for example, he wanted to play a guitar because he's around music all his life. I wanted to put him on the piano. Okay.
Yes.
And so he joined W.O. Smith, the music school, and in his first year, he won the keys competition.
Mm.
Yeah. And so what was happening was he got with what his desire was, but his desire actually was to be a musician, period.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get the music. Now he's playing piano, he can play drums, he played all. He just started on the guitar.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's going to be a producer, and even now, he's just amazing. And We just watch. And he's also with physical fitness, for example. You know, he's a monster. And so he loves working with kids. He trains kids. I remember one time we helped your organization, Yolanda.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
He stood in my place one day because I couldn't be there. I think
Uh-huh.
what he said was they thought I was there, but he's much better than me.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, just like Scott said, I don't want to put our children in a box. I want God to put them where they're supposed to be. And so, you know, that's where we stand on that. Lord, give a prophesy who your children are.
Yeah.
And let us watch and see who they are, and that's where we're going to lead them.
Amen. That's so good. I remember watching, and Joe, you've known me a long time, even when Roland Jr. was little bitty. And I remember watching him, and he was always interested in business stuff. I mean, he loved to watch. He was just an old child. He was like old since he was a baby. He was just old. And I noticed we went to a mall, and there was a business fair for kids. It was like they were set up, and it was the CEO Academy. And out of all the fun stuff that was in the mall, he stayed at that table. And he's like, Mom, I want to do this. They help you be business people. And I signed him up, and he won national competitions. He started his own business at 10. He started investing early, and now today his major is investment banking, and he is so excited about it. But I saw it as a child, and I knew to guide him, not push him too much and get my own diet, because I'm a business person. I'm like, I was ready for him to be in the Fortune 500 company. He was 11. He said, Mom, I'm just 11. Can you slow down? Can you slow down? So being careful not to push what we want to see, but allow, as you said, Joe, what God has given them, in them, what their gifting and talents are, and we help guide that and show and open and take them where doors can be open for them to participate, and God does the rest. And for us not to try to change what we see that they have interest, because we feel like they need to be a doctor instead of a lawyer that they want to be, or whatever that thing may be that they want to be. We want to switch it because we feel like it's not a good thing. Or they don't want to be a pastor, they want to be a worship leader, or they want to be a doctor. And so being careful not to push what we want to see them be, but allow their giftings and talents to come forth. And then then the launching part is easy, because we've helped guide them through that process. So thank you guys for sharing that. And I think it's just so important for parents to understand that we do have a role in that. Joe, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share one more thing if I can. In Proverbs 12, verse 11, it says, he who tills his land, it's like an accent on his, will be satisfied with bread. But he who follows worthless pursuits is lacking in sense.
That's good.
Money is such an idol. You know, you don't have to be an idol, because God created money as a means of exchange. But to look at money as you have to do this to make money, that's disgusting. Mm-hmm. You know, it sends a kid down a path of defeated purpose.
Yes.
They're going to do great in what they're gifted, because that's what they're designed for.
Yeah.
Quit preaching.
That's good. That's good, because I've seen a lot of people that are in corporations that are making tons of money, and they're miserable. Their families are is chaos in their family, and because they're really wanting to be doing something different, but because that someone told them that they should do that because they will make lots of money, and they're not walking in really what they're called and gifted to do, they end up being miserable. They stay there, and they get older, and then they decide to transition at a later time. And sometimes God always blesses that. But I think when we don't see that early on, we tend to get into positions that we're not even gifted and called to, and there's a lot of stress. Yeah. And I know all of you have seen that with many people as well. Thank you guys for sharing that. We're almost done. It's going by too fast. So I'm gonna go on to the next question, which is, were you a overprotective father? And the second part of that, what would your children say? You know, we can have our own opinions of what we think we were, but what would your children say? Were you an overprotected parent, in your opinion, and what would your children say, Scott?
Well, I asked my kids, and they said no.
That's great.
I would have to differ a little bit, because I think I probably was at an age when they didn't know to take account. When they were younger, there's no doubt in my mind I was an overprotective parent. because, like I said earlier, I had not even held a baby. And so anything that would get near a baby, whether it be a piece of grass in the yard, something blowing in the wind, I was shielding everybody around. If someone sneezed in a room, I would suck in the air so no one would get it on her or him. Yeah, I think I did. I think it's just, not having any experience there, it made me overprotective. But I think, again, I go back to the seasons of life. I think I learned, God forbid, if we had a child now, I think if they would fall down, I'd go, "I'll let it bleed. You'll be all right in a little bit."
Exactly.
It's just the seasons. I think everything's changed now, and I watch parents with little children now, and I try to encourage them, and sometimes you see how tired they are and frustrated, and I look at them and go, "Oh, just hang on. It gets a lot better." And just kind of sarcastically smile at them. But I think earlier I was, but I think right now I'm having the most fun as a dad I've ever had, because I think, gosh, I could get emotional thinking about it. I actually get to sit back and enjoy watching what has taken place. And Val and I often say, enjoy the moments, because when you see them happen, if you're too busy, you'll miss it. When they fought in the back seat of the car on a trip, it used to be frustrating. Now when I hear the noise in the back seat of the car, it's because I see two young people who are enjoying each other and really enjoying their family. And I look in the mirror sometimes and just smile and think, wow. And it's all because of the season. So I think earlier I was, but I think now I'm just in a moment where I get to sit back and really watch what happens. And not that I don't get to check out, but I get to watch from a different perspective.
That's good. Marcus?
Yes, I am.
Without delays, he was like, "Yes, I am."
I mean, because I have to protect them. That's the job of a father, is to protect your child, because there's so many evil things out there, evil people out there. I don't want nothing to happen to my son where he could say, "Dad, why wasn't you there to protect me when I was young? Why you let me go over so-and-so house?" or anything like that. So I am not so much overprotective, but me and my wife, we really watch our son. And my mother-in-law is a hawk at church. He ain't sitting with nobody you don't need to be sitting with. So she's an usher at church, so she is a hawk. So my son ain't sitting with nobody he don't need to be sitting with, mainly because that's my job. That's my job. My parents were very overprotective with us 4 kids. It was 4 of us. And my mom and dad made sure we was always protected. And so I think that just trickled down to us, where I'm the same way. My younger brother, same way. My sister, same way. My older brother. We watch our kids, because that's the way we were trained. So for that question, Miss Shield, yes, I am protective, not over, but I watch every move. And I'm telling you, my wife is probably tougher than me. She is.
Great. I was the same way. My son, he would, without hesitation, say yes, because he did no sleepovers. I'm like, no, they can come here. I don't know what goes on in their home, but I know what goes on here. And so now he understands that he's older, but back then he was like, "Mom, let up." I'm like, "No, that's my job. This is my job." And so they understand after they get older, and a lot of times they don't see it as that once they get older and they really see. We only have about 11 minutes left, and what I want to do, I have one other question, and then I want you guys to end with sharing about your organization and the work that you're doing with children and families. So my last question I'm going to ask, I'm looking through so I can see which one I want to. I know what I will ask. What is one thing that your father instilled in you or shared with you growing up, or didn't share with you growing up, that you want to share with other fathers to kind of either encourage them or encourage them not to do that or encourage them to do it? And so I'm going to start with you, Joe.
Well, as you know, and most people that see the movie, I didn't grow up with my father. I saw him maybe 3 times up to the age of 3. And then I didn't hear from him or hear his voice, talk to him to age 22. And so, I can't answer from that perspective of, experience from dealing with a father. But with me, as a father, I really believe a father should be a good investor. They should invest time wisely.
Yes.
that right there is so important, the time factor. And I don't mean being on my computer beside my child, and my child is saying, "Well, Daddy, can you help me this?" And I say yes, but I'm still looking at that computer. And so I'm actually talking about a time investment of where I'm in my child's space. I'm giving my child attention. I'm showing them I love them by saying they're important enough for me to take the get away from business, get away from ministry, because you're my first ministry. And you're my most important ministry. If I can't manage the things in my own household, how can I manage ministry for somebody else?
That's good, Joe. Oh
yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like I'm preaching. I need to not do that.
No, you're fine, Joe. You're fine. Keep sharing.
Okay, because I'm trying not to preach it. But yeah, the investment. I'm going to stop on that. The investment.
Okay. Marcus?
Real quick, my dad just taught me to have a great work ethic. He didn't really teach a lot. We saw a lot of through action. I can honestly say in my 39 years of living, I probably heard my dad say, "I love you," maybe 3 or 4 times. And I've been with my dad all my life because he didn't talk much. He showed it through action. So I'm kind of the same way. My wife gets on me all the time saying, "You don't say I love you a lot." But I try to show it through action. I try to show it where she can come home to a safe environment. Same thing my father did. In my 39 years of living, never seen my father disrespect my mother or hit her, anything. So I use them same methods in my life where we'll be married 14 years next Tuesday. We'll be married 14 years. And by the grace of God, we've never been through counseling or anything. It's just my dad trained me how to deal with so many different issues, especially when if my mother grew up without a father, and unfortunately my wife grew up without her, so he trained me how to deal with every aspect in marriage. So when different issues arise, he said, "Son, you know what to do." And I'm not the perfect father. I do the best I can, and by the grace of God. But like I said, my wife is my heartbeat, and I want to be sure she's always safe, and that she knows that, hey, when she come home, it's safe. She can relax, and my son can come home and knows that, hey, I'm gonna have fun with Dad. So that's the things that I learned from my father, who I truly love to death. We have a great relationship, and just primary work, take care of your kids, and just live the best way you can.
Scott?
Well, that is a difficult question. That's probably the hardest question I think you've given tonight.
Wow.
I was sitting here listening to them share, and I think probably for me, when I reflect on, watching a father grow up and watching other fathers from other children, I think of statistically right now in our country that 1 in 3 kids only has a father influence. And that's 24 million kids out there right now who don't have Papa, Marcus, or Scott speaking in their lives. And that tells me why our country's in the condition we're in.
Yes.
I said earlier in my conversation when you asked us about, being a dad and what do we regret and what do we like, I think the number one thing I had to learn growing up, because I could resemble a lot of what Marcus just shared. I mean, I didn't hear my father say I love you. There was not a lot of affection. And I think as an adult growing up, I held some resentment about that. I think I held a lot of bitterness and anger as a child growing up. Why don't I get that? Because if I saw that through someone else's child, I didn't understand why I didn't get it. I think when I matured, I began to realize that I could forgive my father because I realized he didn't have that. And I think this is what I'd really like to say about this is, what's not been given, you can't give away.
Yes.
And we have a lot of fathers out there and a lot of children who haven't been given what a father is. And so they're growing up in a culture where they don't know what a father is, and so they don't know how to be a father. And so I had to learn to forgive my father for not maybe leading the way that I thought a father should be, not loving the way a father should love. He was an incredible provider, but the things that I would need necessarily weren't there. And I think that's why it was important for me, and I would say to any dad out there who's listening or watches this later, that's not an excuse for you not to be a good dad. There are plenty of examples and models out there that you can go connect yourself to and learn to be a good dad and learn to be a good father. And I say all the time, and if my dad was here, I'd say to him too, I may have had a bad example growing up, but he's an amazing grandpa. to my kids.
Yeah.
And I tell him that. You know, I wrote him a letter several years ago when he helped me build a garage at my house. We spent 7 days, and I said, you know, in the 7 days we got up at 4:30 to drink coffee and build this garage. You've been more of a dad in 7 days than you were in 18 years. Wow. And I think that meant something to him because I don't think he realized that. And I told him, I said, Dad, I forgive you for the things that you may not have done in my life because you didn't have a model. Grandpa didn't show you how to become that. Yeah. And so how can I hold someone accountable when they've not received it? And that's why I think it's important for us as dads in this show tonight and also in other future moments to speak in the lives of our kids and say, you know what, you can break the cycle. Yes. You may have not had a father, but you can go find a father and break the cycle so that your kids do have that example. And I think for me, that's what it's all about, is now, you know, breaking the cycle. I look at my son, you know what, he's going to be an amazing dad someday. Yes. And I'm going to get to spoil those grandkids. So I'm excited about that. So.
Yes. Great. Thank you guys so much. That was, I hope that those that are watching, the dads and the moms, just parents in general, that the things that you've heard these amazing men and these amazing dads share today, that you will take those things and apply them. It's about practical application of things that you hear, not just being inspired, not just being motivated, but saying, what is something that they shared tonight that I can take and implement? And so I hope you will do that. And again, this is Table Talk, and I want to end our conversation by having them share about the organizations and the work that they're doing in the community. They're doing some amazing work with children and families and with boys and really with families. And so I'm going to start by having Marcus share about his organization, and then I'm going to go to Joe, Papa Joe, and then to Scott.
Real quick, I know our time is running short. Our organization is Strong in My Father. Just like Scott said, our main goal is to break the cycle of fatherhood. Kids that enter our program, our goal is to provide them with every tool it takes to be successful as a man and as a father. So we provide all kinds of tools for as schooling. We want to make sure that they're making the best grades in school. If they're in high school, get them in ACT prep so they can get their scores high. We do college tours. We do football camps. I mean, we do everything it takes to push your child into his God-given purpose. So that's what we do. Our camp, we just provide on Father's Day weekend with 23 young men with us. God truly moved. He truly moved through our campfire intervention, where young men really poured their hearts out of their desire. You know, they desire because they didn't have a dad in their life, so we prayed with them. And we're going to reach out to them this weekend and spend time with them again. So it doesn't stop at a camp. We continue to move forward. We work hard with our young men, and that's what our goal is to break the cycle. Strong in My Father. The cycle ends with me. You can reach me at stronginmyfather.org, or you can reach me at 615-669-1559. I'm here to help in any kind of way. We can help your child reach out his purpose. And thank you, Michelle, for having me on.
No, you're welcome. Papa Joe?
Yeah, you can reach me at Elijah's Heart, Prophet Elijah with an S, HERT.com. And just go to papajoe.org. Okay? What we have to give a child a fish, feed him for a day, teach a child fish, feed him for a lifetime. We're on both ends of that. We have a program called the Walk of Love, where we help whole communities with food, personal care. And we have a literacy program. We have over 50,000 books, children's books. And we have a literacy program where we can get the books into the homes of the kids, and we help people connect with the kids to help them read. So thank you, Yolanda. Love all you guys. On to next guy.
Hey, Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, as I said earlier, I get the privilege of speaking into kids' lives through the Powerhouse Youth Project. You can go to our website at powerhouse.org, or you can go to our Facebook page, which is Powerhouse Youth Project. The goal of Powerhouse is to speak in the lives of kids and give them something to hang on to through their life, and that is hope. And that is something that we are building, because you can do that in 55 minutes in a school assembly, but both the guys who just spoke as dads can tell you it takes a lifetime to build a young person or a young woman into what they need to be. And so what we are doing, I want to put Marcus in front of 56 million students, and I want to put Papa Joe in front of 56 million students, and that's what we're building. We're building the infrastructure that we're going to reach every middle school student in this country and give them the hope they need to carry through their lifetime, so that we don't just come in and speak the message of hope, but now we teach them how to live that life. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go to powerhouse.org, or you can hit me up on Facebook, Powerhouse Youth Project, or you can call me too, giving my phone number out. This is scary. 615-479-6294.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on Table Talk. It's been an amazing conversation, and I know those that have watched have been inspired and motivated to move forward in parenting their children as a father. And those of you that don't have fathers in your life, you heard the information shared about these amazing men's organizations and what they do. Please reach out to them. That's one of the things I kind of highlighted in my book, Letters to Our Sons. And you can also get information about the organizations on the Letters to Our Sons on Facebook, and you'll see their links to their websites and to their Facebook pages. And I thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I just hope that you will leave and take something that you heard and use it this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.
And thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you.